So how to learn like a polymath. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the approach that I've taken so that I can be able to learn various disciplines at the same time on my journey to becoming a polymath, and my understanding of what other polymaths have done so that you can begin to enhance your experience as a polymath or begin to even have an approach to polymathery. So, the first thing that needs to be discussed is the understanding of hard skills and soft skills. And this is something that came up to me first when I was beginning to dive into this concept: hard skills versus soft skills. So, every discipline has a hard skill, and every discipline uses soft skills also. Hard skills are the ones that are more oriented towards the technicalities, towards the rules of of the system, of the discipline, while soft skills are more universal, which have to do more um, with the feelings, or they have to do more so with character traits within yourself, values, etc. So soft skills, for example, could be empathy, communication, emotional intelligence, cognitive intelligence. It could be also your ability to learn how to learn. Um, and then also hard skills are more technical stuff. So like specific dance moves, for example, or specific techniques within a field, etc. So soft skills are more about feeling. That's why they're called soft. While also hard skills are more about details, more about preciseness. And both are important. And the thing that I want you to understand when it comes to um, learning is that soft skills are more universal also. So you can develop your soft skills within a specific discipline, and then you can apply those soft skills within other disciplines. For example, I learned the soft skill of communication in dance, and that helped me to express myself more authentically across various fields. For example, on camera, but also interacting with friends and family, etc. But then there's the hard skill within dance, which is the techniques, which is me learning how to do a basic step, etc. So at first, there's a steep learning curve. So if you want to learn faster, you have to understand that there is a steep learning curve, but that you can ease this process of learning by focusing first on the soft skills. So another thing that I've learned is that drive and passion are also very important. When I'm going into a skill or a specific discipline, I only decided to go into it because I have some sort of interest or inspiration from it or about it. So at first, I like to focus on the color, the feeling, the colors of it, the possibilities. For example, I started to learn guitar. I never really mastered it, but when I got into it, I saw a lot of people being very frustrated by their inability to play the guitar, their inability to play the specific note, etc. But for me, it was actually fun. The whole process was very fun because at first I would be able to imagine myself connecting with something, or in the present time, I would derive a lot of fulfillment from just seeing my hands gain some different dexterity. Also, I would derive a lot of fulfillment from understanding the possibilities of me being able to play different music with the guitar, and knowing that a guitar can that I can actually be able to connect to a song through the guitar in my own unique way. So that is, those that specific area that I'm talking about. That's really me having the soft skills, or the values of patience, of a growth mindset, of a curiosity, of a desire or an openness to possibilities. Those are universal. So when you go into any skill or any discipline, you can first begin with the soft skills, focus on those, and then as you learn and go through the learning curve, you can then focus on the hard skills. So at first, people like are excited, they're enthusiastic, they love learning, they love challenging themselves, and then they start honing in on the technicals, and then that's when they start to hear, oh shit, I'm getting good at this. I'm actually a dancer, or I'm actually a guitar player, or I'm actually, etc., etc., etc. That's when people start giving themselves permission to feel like they're mastering. So then that's the second phase of focusing on the hard skill. But then after some time, you will then be able to integrate both of these, the soft skills and the hard skills, and you will create something unique. So soft skills is you learning, you're a newbie, you probably got a D or a C in the specific discipline, and then you get a B, which is you learning the hard skills, and then for you to get that A plus or that S grade, that will be you integrating your soft skills with your hard skills. Um, and I'm talking about the path of a polymath because if I'm talking about the path of a specialist, specialists usually are able to to be considered geniuses or masters through through trying to get the rest of the 20%. So the rule that I mentioned before is to just shoot for 80%. You just have to get a B. So once you get that B, once you master the technicals to an 80% understanding, then you have the choice to stop trying to specialize in there, or and or you can specialize and go harder. Both paths are fine. Just understand that as a polymath, you don't specialize, you integrate. So you then bring your understanding from other disciplines and tie it into the current discipline, and that leads to innovations in the field. Uh, so if you want to be known as a genius within that discipline, it really means that you're able to integrate from various disciplines. Um, and I guess an example of this would be for me, like for dance. After I learned the basics, I was then able to insert dance moves from other dances that I've done. So then I could be doing the jerk while I'm dancing salsa, or I could be breakdancing while I'm dancing bachata. So that's you now developing a new style, which isn't really a new style. It's nothing crazy. It's just you expressing yourself through that specific modality. But that kind of makes you stand out. That makes you, and it's not really about standing out. It's not really about being recognized as a genius. It's more about you bringing more of yourself into a field. So I try to avoid the specialist route because that is very limiting. I think that the age of the specialist is dying. I think it's time for the polymaths, and I think that everybody should be taking on this approach anyways because it makes any learning process a lot more fun. Like it just makes it fun. It allows you also to speed up learning across other areas of life, which is what I'm going to in later on. Um but I want to focus on the next thing, which is technique versus understanding. So mastering the technique takes time, and there's no way to go about it. Your body needs to develop to be able to express this specific technique in dance. You have to learn a specific number of. You have to train yourself to write a specific number of code for you to be able to master that. Master coding. You have to. This is really the repetition of things, and that's mastering. But you can understand technique right away before you master it, and that will help you learn master the technique faster also. So understanding the technique is really understanding the source of the technique. It's really understanding the intention behind the actions, the story that the technique is telling. So this is why culture is also very important, at least when I'm talking about dance. um, Seeing the technique in this raw isolated space in a class is not the same as seeing the technique being danced out in the streets where the technique came from, in a culture where the technique came from. So if you can understand the culture, if you can understand the people, if you can understand the intention, then when you see that in class, then you can look to connect with the intention first and then use a technique to express the intention, because at the end of the day, that's what all technique is meant to do. Um, that's what all of these various disciplines are meant to do. They're really meant to just express something wider, which is the universe, which is the higher self. So, for example, with music too, like connect to the feeling, and then you can replicate the technique. hopefully that that's Hopefully that resonates and that makes sense. I'll give you an example. So Bruce Lee talked about this. He said, don't focus on the finger, or else you'll miss all of the heavenly glory." And I don't know if that's the specific quote, but that's how I remember it. It's a scene where he's talking to one of his students, and he's telling him that, if you were to point to the moon, you're not gonna you're not gonna focus on the finger, although the finger is pointing, and it exists there for you to understand that there's a direction. You have to let go of the finger and look at at the heavens. And people are often caught up in the finger. They're caught up in the details. They're caught up in the specifics. They're caught up in the technique. And that's not really the point here, because at the end of the day, the technique is meant to take you somewhere else. The technique is meant to be transcended. That's the whole point of life. What I understand about being in this humanly body is that we are the infinite in being put into the finite. We are consciousness being put through a physical body, and so the body is meant to develop itself to express consciousness. So it's like this inverted thing where, like, we have first the universe, the infinite, it condenses itself, and then it's meant to then express itself again. Um, so it's like this V shape. Let me see. Let me see if this works. There we go. So it's like first it's the universe, it condenses itself, and then it expresses itself. Um, Hopefully that makes sense. But what I'm saying is that the infinite will be condensed through a specific modality, so that it can later be expressed and be transcended. Um, and this is all done so that you can be able to see the many within the one, the universe within the one, the all within the one. So whenever you put yourself through a discipline, it's really you wanting to see yourself as, for example, a dancer, only to understand um, and discover who you are as a dancer, and then find even more avenues for you to express yourself in that way. So maybe, for example, I can't express myself. Sometimes there are things that are best said through dance than through words, and vice versa. And that's the thing. Like, there are specific areas in life that are meant to that serve a purpose better than other things, and that's why it's great to be a polymath, because then you're able to understand how each one of these things work. When you master them, to hit that 80%, you understand where those things fit into your life, and then you can choose how to best express yourself. And that's really the I'm talking about technique here, but that's really the overall understanding for you to be a polymath. The reason you should be a polymath. Um, so now that we're talking about the universal and the infinite, let's go into the universal principles that need to be discussed. Understand that when you're learning, there are universal principles at large, always. You can find these across the fields. I've mentioned this with the soft skills, for example, patience, compassion, etc. Learning how to learn. There are universal principles. So when you look for those universal principles within the one thing, then you already got a step up to other people, because you already have something that you connect with. Seeing the same thing in different things. Um, what I want you to understand is that everything is a metaphor, or thinking in metaphors is one of the best ways to learn. So when you're going into a specific discipline, make sure that you allow yourself to see that discipline in other fields. So when I was learning to animate, I was also learning to dance. So what I would like to do, or what I used to do, or what I still do, is I would dance, and I would see how timing was important in dance, and how that affected the way I expressed myself, and then how timing is important in animation. And that click was really what helped me speed up my growth in both of these fields. I was able to really um, manipulate my body, um, because of my understanding of my mental understanding through animation, will also manipulate my animation through my understanding of my body, which is super dope. Because here you're seeing that it's there's a connection here. The thing is timing, but it's the same thing, just expressed differently across these various fields. So if you can understand that the general principle is timing, then you can go into other fields, and maybe timing plays a role in these other fields. And so you can then relate your experience as a dancer and animator into that other field. So you see there, that's like the application of that concept. Um, the next thing is the principle of love. For me, I believe this is something that I kind of mentioned in the past with authenticity, but it's gonna be really quick. All disciplines have a system to it. All disciplines have rules to it. All disciplines have value systems to it. So most of the time, most disciplines are governed by status, power, greed, money, etc. That is changing. I do feel like that is changing, but at the end of the day, the higher frequency is love, because people are really seeking love when they're seeking status, they're seeking validation when they're seeking power. What people really want is love. They want to connect to that. So when you understand this general principle, when interacting with human beings, if you can come from a place of love and understand how people want to be loved, etc., then you're already playing a different game, and you don't become a slave to the system. Instead, you become a creator. You become an individual within the system. You can make moves in that way. You can make waves in that way. Um, so that's another like example of this. If you're a polymath, you might want to see. You might want to look for the higher frequency of things, um, the source of the things that you are pursuing. Focusing on the fundamentals. Okay, so there's this general rule that all things come from few things, and really this rule is that whenever you want to learn something, you want to learn first the fundamentals before anything else, before getting into the details. And really, this understanding of fundamentals comes from a much more universal principle, which is understanding that all is one, one is all, that everything stems from this one source. And yeah, and so that comes from the universal principle, number one, the first axiom within the Kabbalion. Tomorrow I will go into this much deeper. I will explain the Kabbalion in a much more in depth manner. But when you understand these universal principles, you can kind of see where these other rules stem from. But anyways, I don't want to lose you first. Let's go back to the fundamentals. Focus on the fundamentals. That's basically what I'm saying. When you Everything that is within a discipline is really just a derivative or an integration of these fundamentals. There might be 5 or 4 building blocks, but everything is then just an expression of those building blocks. People cut it up, people fit it differently, but at the end of the day, they all come from the 5 building blocks. So I'll give you an example with serving, so that this makes more sense. I want to become a great server. So I have this goal of becoming a great server, and I've at first I was trying to just memorize the menus so that I can be seen as somebody that has the knowledge. But it was inefficient. It was boring. It was hard also. So I gave up, and I was like, okay, I have to go all in. I have to learn the fundamentals. I have to go from scratch, which is really the way I should have gone from the start. But anyways, whenever you go and do something, you gotta learn the fundamentals. So I identified, like, asked myself, what are like the 4 or 5 fundamentals of serving? And so the first one was that I came up with was server etiquette. Then I came up with culture, understanding the culture of the restaurant that you're working in. The third one is going to be understanding the food, and then understanding the drinks, the cocktails. So then, within these 4 fields, I went in and questioned what are the fundamentals of server etiquette, what are the fundamentals of the culture, what are the fundamentals of cocktails, the fundamentals of food, and within that, with the fundamentals of server etiquette, I figured that it's more about soft skills. Yes, there are some techniques, there are some details that you must pay attention to. You must be polite. There are certain ways of putting the plate down, etc., etc. But with my understanding of soft skills, at the end of the day, I understood that server etiquette is really just about being a guide to the people, understanding how to connect with people, understanding how to be polite, understanding where your guests are coming from, Uh, so that was like the thing that really gave me a lot of confidence with serving. Now it's just a matter of kind of learning the details, and those details will just be fleshed out because I understand that um, that the overall rule is just being a loving person and caring, because hospitality at the end of the day is about being a good host and having people feel at home. That was like the main rule. Like that is gold for anybody who's trying to be a server. But anyways, the culture. And what I understand about culture is that it's really about values. So when I understand what the values are of people, and I understand whether those values align with me, then I can better express and conform or fit that those guidelines that my higher ups have. So people have expectations, but those expectations come from values. And so if you can understand the values of people, then you can meet their expectations much more easily. The next thing, being food knowledge. So I need to understand the culture. I need to understand Italy. I need to understand. Um, Maybe I can get a cookbook. Maybe I can get a book on culture. Maybe I can watch videos on Italian culture, etc., etc. I haven't really gotten into it too much, but I have seen, for example, like pasta is really big. Pizza is really big. Um, and yeah, that's kind of what I understand there. But obviously, I need more work on that. But I have the confidence to understand that that going into the culture and going into that will give me the knowledge, because those are the fundamentals. And then cocktail, I bought a cocktail book. Um, so I asked myself about the fundamentals of cocktails. So you see here that there's a branch here. So fundamental, four fundamentals of serving, and then there's four fundamentals of cocktails. And so I'm letting myself branch out, and you'll see um, that this is over here. This like third level is usually where people inadvertently just try to focus on. They try to focus on the details. They try to focus on the cool stuff, on the specific things, um, on the flashy things. But the more important thing is for you to first focus on the basic, boring stuff, the building blocks, so that you can understand where those flashy things come from. So, when it comes to cocktails, there's like four basic cocktails that you gotta learn. All the other cocktails really stem from them. And the cool thing that I've learned is that really what has led to new creations of cocktails has really just been people playing with the fundamentals. They're really just like substituting like gin for vodka, or like vermouth um for burr. So like then I'm getting when I'm looking at the menu, I can see here, oh, okay, so this is really a play on a martini, or okay, this is really a play on a old fashioned. So then the old fashioned and the martini are the fundamentals, while the things that I'm looking at on my restaurant's menu are the derivatives of the fundamentals. Excuse me. So yeah, that's that right there. Approach other skills like cooking, communication. Oh, okay. And another thing that I want you to know is that when you're learning, do not restrict yourself to to the specific discipline. What I mean by this is, for example, as a server now, understand that I'm seeing the bigger picture, which is that as I become a better server, I'm then becoming also a better cook. Maybe I'll learn a recipe once I start getting into Italian culture, or maybe I become a better host. So whenever somebody comes to my home, I kind of know how to give them that experience of going to a restaurant, or even if I were to cook for somebody. Or when it comes to communication, like maybe serving can teach me how to be a better communicator. For example, like a general principle is asking questions. So being a good listener, that is very essential when it comes to serving, but that's also very essential when just communicating with people overall. So these fundamentals, be able to detach the fundamentals from the thing itself. So detach the fundamentals of serving from serving, and see where else you can find them, and see where else they can be applied. So when you get down to the basics, you can then become a creator where you can apply the fundamentals of serving into the fundamentals of connecting with your partner or your friends. So you see here that the person is not constrained ever by the discipline that he is within. In fact, he uses the discipline to enhance his own expression. And that's what I'm gonna keep on throwing out there for you to understand, because there's so many things here. And I'm going through this in such a fast manner that I know that there's some things that just need to be stated, restated, emphasized, explained in a different manner. This is all about a holistic approach. You have to be able to take things from different angles, be able to connect unlike things so that you can um, uh, discover something new. Um, at the end of the day, I think that it's always going to be about how you can connect other fields. As a polymath, you have to be able to seek the connection with other things in your life. So it is a process of holistic development, learning to think holistically, learning to live an integrative life, learning to see, having this approach of wanting to see the many within the one. And then, yeah, and so then a discipline could then become a metaphor for another discipline, like I mentioned before, with like animation and dance. Now, let me talk about. I'll give you another example, which is which will be the final one, just to like really bring all of this together. So in dance, I want to focus on the feeling rather than the technique itself. So that was my computer. Rather than the technique itself. So people want to learn the flashy moves. They want to get all the cool stuff. Um, but hold on, let me put this here. I keep looking up here because I'm looking at my screen, which has my camera, but I should be looking at the camera. I'll fix that later. But anyways, in dance, we got these flashy moves, these cool techniques. Um, and so whenever I go into a class and they're teaching a technique, I don't try to learn the technique itself. I don't try to learn the details. Instead, I try to focus on the feeling that is being emitted by the technique. So, um, so I first seek to connect with the technique within myself. What is the technique telling me? What do I feel? Um, how do I see myself expressing that specific technique? And once I find that, then I allow myself to use the technique as a guide to a further solidification of the feeling within me. So most people will try to imitate. They will see something outside and try to project themselves outwards, um, by trying to imitate that specific thing. Like you're not you're not Nikola Tesla, you're not Da Vinci, you're not Bruce Lee, but you can see how your life can be in a similar expression of their lives. So don't try to be Bruce Lee, don't try to be Da Vinci. Try to follow the intention that they had behind their life, behind their approach. And in doing so, you will become like them in your own unique way. Um, so so this really helps to for you to understand and for you to not chain yourself to a specific outside thing. At the end of the day, it's about you. It's about your journey to your unique self, to your divine expression. So first, think, like, connect with yourself inwardly before approaching a technique, before approaching a system, before approaching a discipline. First, find the thing that resonates with you, the thing that reminds you of yourself, the thing that pushes you to discover more of yourself. And then once you get into that and once you follow that, use that technique, use the system as a way for you to use it as a guide for you to facilitate the expression of the feeling itself. And then once you do it, you're able to then uh, be able to express something completely unique, but also something um, that is still an expression of that discipline and also of yourself. Um, and then I'm just gonna finish this video off with just in my understanding of what it means to be a polymath. To be a polymath, at the end of the day, to be a polymath, it means to seek yourself in the many, to find yourself in the many, to discover who you are through these different roles. And then once you discover who you are, being able to tie that into everything else that you are, and then becoming this much more capable person. So, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes things are best expressed through a specific channel. Sometimes it's best to say things through dance than through words. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, it means becoming the highest version of yourself, giving your higher self more tools, more disciplines, more abilities for it to come in and express itself. And that's the goal. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of being a polymath. And and I think we're living in the perfect age for that. So hopefully this video has been helpful. This was my second time recording it because the audio on this mic, I just keep fucking it up. There's a specific angle that I need to have this mic on, or else it just keeps cutting off. Um, so hopefully this was helpful. Uh, I will keep. Tomorrow I'm gonna be focusing on the Kabbalion, so I'm just gonna go in and just, I don't know how long it's gonna take me, but just go through it and talk about the implications and how I have applied the universal principles so that you can begin to use them. Oh, and one last thing, um, that I mentioned in my previous video that was super important. When you're learning, it's been said that it's more important for you to learn than to learn the specific discipline. And I understand that because before learning anything in life, it is first that you learn about life. You learn the universal principles, you learn the life principles. Those principles can be found in nature, but they can also be found in the spiritual texts, the Kabbalion, for example. So, understanding the laws of the universe will help you understand the laws of physics, of money, of dance, etc. Why? Because everything stems from life. Life is the first principle. Life is the source of all things. And so life is also the source of all disciplines. So instead of trying to go to these branches, why don't we just get to the source? The source right here, which is life. Understand these principles first before all else, and then you have the power to go into any other derivative of that principle and be able to master it at a faster pace. That's why I think that the polymaths like Bruce Lee, Da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, these polymaths were all mystics, they were philosophers, they were tapped into something deeper. And if you want to be like them, if you want to live a life like them, then you must tap into that deeper thing. And that deeper thing is really your higher self. That deeper thing is really higher understanding, is really understanding of the universe. And so focus on that first. I think it's a prerequisite for becoming a polymath. And then you'll be able to do anything you want. So that's my final point. That's it for this video. I'll see you on the next one. Stay lucid. Peace.